Welcome to our 8th Family Holding sector call. Where to start? Yesterday, the COP28 summit came to a conclusion. During 13 days, where leaders and decision makers have met in Dubai, putting the Gulf countries even more in the spotlight. The economic surveys constantly show that the most competitive economies in the region, Saudi Arabia, UAE and Qatar, not only rank among the top 20 by the IMD World Competitiveness Index, but are also on the upward path in terms of economic growth and innovation. The figures are stunning. Looking forward to 2030, $2 trillion in cumulative GDP, 1 million extra jobs through the green economy, $780 billion being the size of the digital economy. In a context where wealth is growing by 7.2%, highest rate worldwide, and family-owned companies contribute to 80% of the regional GDP. Not surprisingly, our historical setup in the Middle East has been growing. CACIB opened a branch in Doha in 2020 and operates a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia since 2022. To foster closer cooperation, CACIB and Indosuez teams are working in the same location and venues, catering the needs of local and international clients, and in particular, family holdings. I'm very thrilled to introduce to you our guest and present you the private investment banking team in charge of the region. Dr.Ali Dayekh, who is in video call, former chairman and CEO of one of the largest Saudi construction group and board member of Crédit Agricole Egypt. Dr.Ali has over 30 years of investment experience in diversified sectors and geographies, in addition to a PhD in economics from Kensington University. Here with me, Atem Masmoudi, CEO for Middle East and Africa for CACIB since September 22. He's also a Crédit Agricole Egypt board member, and prior to this appointment, Atem was the head of CACIB Global Markets for Middle East and Africa. Once again in video call, Emil Salawi, head of Middle East for Indosuez Wealth Management and member of the Wealth Management Executive Committee. He oversees the development of ultra-high net worth individuals and single-family offices, and is a sponsor of the Next Gen program within Indosuez. Thank you for coming, guys. I'm also very pleased to present you our private investment banking setup for and in the Middle East. Here with me, Elisabeth Renaudon, who is based in Paris, responsible for the Middle East, India, and the UK. And once again in video call, Jiwan Naki, based in Dubai, managing director for the region, who just joined our team, whilst Elisabeth joined the team 3 years ago. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome Jiwan in our team. Let's start by discussing about economic opportunities and key drivers of growth in the Middle East. According to the World Bank, the region's economy performed very well in 2022, reaching a 7.3% GDP growth, and is expected to remain very strong in 2023, despite lower energy prices. So I have a question for Dr. Ali. Based on your experience, what are the main differences in terms of economic development among GCC countries and other countries in the Middle East? In other words, which countries do you expect to outperform their peers in the medium term? I think, Dr. Ali, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you, Sylvia, for having me on this amazing event. By saying 30 years experience, I feel old now. But anyway, I didn't realize that. Yes. You were asking about the countries and who will benefit, and what I think is very important today is to highlight the reasons behind this success in the area. And it's not only driven by oil by itself. I know that government initiatives fueled by oil budgets or revenues contributed a lot to this growth that's happening. However, it's very important to if you want to compare the Middle East with the GCC initially, we'll have a few words on that. But if you look at the GCC by itself, the biggest investment that they have done in the last 20 years is investment in the youth. They have invested in their own population, in their own people, and in two ways. First way, they've created amazing schools and universities locally to educate people, and they have sent students abroad on scholarships. Most GCC did that. I would say, for example, Saudi Arabia sends around 60,000 people a year to all over the world. And they get free scholarship, it's all paid by the government. And these students come back and with the great talent, speaking different languages. I've seen students coming from China speaking Chinese, and from Japan speaking Japanese, and you name it, from all over the world. And these are the main drivers for any growth. You have to understand that the MENA region, or the Middle East itself, is a young population. The GCC has about, I would say, 60% of the...
I think there's a problem with the...
people at home. So it's very young and very dynamic. So, you can hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
now we can hear you.
Yeah, yes. So I was saying about the young population, they are very dynamic. And this has been, I think, the best investments that the GCC has done. In previous years, other MENA regions were ahead of the GCC. Today, they are far behind, far behind. And I work in different countries.
There's a problem once again with the connection, I guess. I think that we have a problem of connection with Dr. Ali, so we'll try to...
People, they started... Hello?
Yeah, now it's back.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, but anyway. So the government started to create, to challenge their own selves and create visions and create their own... that's what's fueling the growth, and especially the non-oil related growth, which is very important. It's growing at a pace of about 8% in certain parts of the GCC. In addition to this, they have rectified the legal system. They have created the digital transformation, e-governments. So they've created a very transparent business environment and made it worth for people to retain local talent, so they don't have to go abroad, and get paid well locally, so all the local talent stays, and at the same time attracting international talent to come, not just for a 1 or 2 year contract, but a lot of people have come and they want to stay and enjoy life. And the UAE is a proven it's a proven track record for this kind of transformation. And now, of course, coming back to the point where you say which is the more who will benefit the most, and I see that, you know, the biggest player today that's taking a bigger role, doing the most of the initiatives, creating huge value in every part of the sector, in every industry, is Saudi Arabia. There is still value, of course, in the other GCC states, such as the UAE, you know, and of course Oman. I like it very much. There's a lot of value in everywhere, but I see the biggest potential today is in Saudi Arabia.
All right, thank you very much for that. And you touched base, you anticipated my next question, which was really about the non-oil economy, and talking about Saudi, clearly the Vision 2030 plan that aims at developing a huge pipe of infrastructure projects which are worth, based on what I know, roughly $1 trillion. So I have another question for you, Dr. Ali. Do you see local private investors being involved in such projects in Saudi? And most importantly, have they changed their investment strategies based on this very important plan?
Yes, of course. I mean, I see local and international. I don't only see local. Uh, the Today, the number of projects that are happening, the initiatives that are going on are massive in Saudi Arabia. And absolutely nobody has ever done it in the GCC or any other country in the Middle East. I mean, if you look at mining, for example, Saudi has scanned already 30% of the country. 700,000 square kilometers have been scanned to locate precious metals, silver, nickel, gold, phosphate, and there is a 1.3 trillion estimated so far discovered trillion dollars discovered in this field. So now they are attracting local foreign investment. The government gives you an area. They say, okay, we think that there's gold here. You can come and do mining. And I've seen a huge influx of international companies tied up with local companies in that field. Then there is, of course, the biggest projects that are happening. We have a huge airport being built in Riyadh, for 120 million travelers. We have the largest downtown in the world being built in Riyadh, Al Muk'ab. It's a huge downtown. We have the biggest entertainment city in the area, Al Qadiyah. We have the Red Sea, which is the entertainment and the hospitality and all these hotels, beautiful on untouched areas in the Red Sea. We have NEOM. We have sustainable cities. We have infrastructure going into the manufacturing. And of course, the car industry, the government wants to invest in that. They are doing also the supply chain for that. So the list goes on and on and on. In addition to all the events that are going to take place, whether it's the World Cup or the Expo, Asian Cup, Winter Games. I mean, if you just look at the list, it's incredible. All these things coupled together and put together create a huge value for local family offices or businesses locally and for international. And when the government here in our country or even in the GC itself, the governments, when they put something on the table, they do it. It's not like it's a rumor. And we've seen it happen in Saudi Arabia, and they've beaten expectation. So basically, there's a big trust between the private sector and the public sector, and which does not exist in many other countries, I can tell you that. And having this trust coupled with what's happening is what will drive the economy much faster than what we even expect. And the foreign investors are looking very closely. We've seen a huge quantity of important companies coming here, especially with the initiatives that are done by the government to entice regional headquarters to move into the country, giving them tax breaks, giving them a lot of benefits. And of course, this will come back on a huge benefit to the country and to everybody involved. So yes, I see what you're saying about the local offices. They'd be very interested, the home offices, they are all following the trend of the government.
Thank you very much. But beyond Saudi, we have other countries. So Qatar has its National Vision 2030 plan. The UAE will develop the Etihad Rail project, the Hyperloop project between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and that would make a more than $15 billion investment. So Atem, do you see as well these projects being key drivers to family-owned companies?
Yes, exactly. So as Dr. Ali mentioned, these all projects in Saudi and in other countries came with a transformation of the administration, with an acceleration of the law, simplification of the laws, digitalization, and the number of projects, the huge projects, needs to have people who knows the region, and they are making the partnership. So the holding families who are well established, they have the experience, they have the partnership with international companies and so on, have the capacity. They for sure, they will benefit from all these projects. And again, we have visions in these countries. And when take, for example, the energy transition, we know that is something which is key for this region. And we saw some families more and more investing in the renewables, in the solar fields, and so on. And so again, it's important to see that this is a project which is led by the top, but all the families are investing and are benefiting from this trend.
Fantastic. So considering this terrific internal growth in the non-oil economy, Emile, hopefully you can hear us. Do you see any significant evolution in Middle East families' investment strategy in terms of asset allocation? And I would like to touch a word on in Islamic banking, because assets held in Islamic banking institutions have skyrocketed to $2.8 trillion, with projection to $4 trillion by 2026. How does it affect asset allocation, Emile?
Okay, so I mean, as it was mentioned by Dr.Ali and Hatem, it's I think what we're saying is that those families in the region tend to invest in their own countries, but what is happening is that they also are trying to diversify away from their own countries. And this is very true for Europe and the US. Through real assets, they do invest into real estate. They do invest into direct companies. They take sometimes majority or minority stakes in fast-growing companies in Europe or in the US. So we do see actually a slight shift away, diversifying away from the region, even though the tendency is actually to support the growth in their own regions. But also this varies from one country to another. We talked a lot about GCC. We can talk about Egypt. We can talk about some countries in the Levant. So this has the trends tend to change from one country to another. But if we stick to the GCC, it's very true that the population we're targeting and the ultra high net worth families tend to really invest into real assets in countries that are usually in Europe or the US.
I cannot avoid to talk about private investment banking. And I think that with all has been said so far by Dr. Ali, by Hatem, and by Emile, I really would like to hear from Elizabeth and Jiwan, what is the potential for private investment banking in the region?
Well, very concretely, we are focused on 26 families totaling 88 billion of wealth and on geographies that are strictly compliant with CACIB and Indo-Suez strategies in terms of countries. Once again, namely Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Egypt. Regarding Egypt, I want to underline that we already rely and take part in the partnership established in 2021 between Crédit Agricole Egypt and Indo-Suez, and that has been very fruitful, already triggering north of 200 million family deposits in Indo-Suez book. That said, what is our goal? It is to foster the collaboration between CACIB and Indo-Suez and the families, as well as Amundis, in order, for instance, to take part in similar transactions to the one that was announced last September by the Al Maktoum and Arnaud families, LVMH France, when they decided to launch a 1 billion joint fund in order to invest in the Gulf region in luxury and tourism projects. This is exactly on this type of joint initiatives we would like our PIP franchise to make the difference. And how will we do it? Thanks to the extension of our business lines and expertise in the region, and especially GIB. And I will leave the floor to Jiwan on this.
Jiwan?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Sylvia. Indeed, you may know that CACIB exclusive partnership with broker Kepler Cheuvreux originally was based on few European countries, but now it has been extending to the Middle East. We have a very senior analyst based on the ground, which creates an opportunity for families to take part more frequently in iconic and domestic transactions, such as the IPO for ADNOC LNS. This is in line with the announcement of Didier Gaffinel that was taking place during the last town hall, where he mentioned that 2022 has been a remarkable year for ECM, where 25% of the transactions in EMEA has taken place in the Middle East.
Absolutely, absolutely. According to the Saudi National Investment Strategy, the kingdom seeks to attract $3 trillion in foreign investments by 2030, and to that purpose will offer tax breaks and subsidies for global companies willing to establish the local head office in Saudi. So, Atem, in your view, who are the most active foreign investors in the GCC region? Large corporates, funds, family holding? How do you think they will co-invest with other investors in the region?
Actually, what we saw is the fact that we saw more and more asset managers, investors coming to the region, holding families as well, establishing a presence in for example, in DIFC, the Dubai International Financial Center, or the ADGM, the Abu Dhabi Global Center. This is something which is new, but also accelerating. We have more and more families establishing their offices in this region. In UAE, for example, the last one I saw last week is probably the NNS family, where they established a new offices in Abu Dhabi. But not only, we have families from India, from Asia, from China, and so on. So we have more and more families coming to the region, establishing new offices. Asset managers, again, they are more and more important, and they are investing a lot to have a presence locally. International international asset managers, but also French ones. And we saw, for example, last year, Aldian and Tikeo coming to the region as well. In terms of corporates, probably, I mean, they have already a presence in the UAE, less in Saudi in the past, but taking into account all the huge projects in Saudi Arabia, and as Dr. Ali mentioned, all these projects with NEOM, with Red Sea, and so on and so on, we have more and more corporates coming to the region, especially in Saudi Arabia, with the headquarters in Saudi Arabia for the region, and they have a lot of opportunities in this region as well.
Dr. Ali, we talked about the tax benefits. Can you tell us more about the way GCC countries manage governance issues to attract foreign investors? I don't know if you can hear us, Dr. Ali?
Hello?
Yes.
It goes automatic on mute. I didn't touch it.
Can you hear? Did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question. Again, it comes back to reform. You know, when you have digital transformation, you cut down on corruption, you cut down on time, you become more efficient. When you look at the laws and regulations and you enhance them, make them very easy, investors love that, they like to come. And again, if I have to compare between the GCC and other Arabic countries, the gap is very big in laws and regulations. I mean, in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, Bahrain, you know, the law is very clear, very transparent. You could also put other. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You could use a British law. It wasn't the case before. Now all these laws have been rectified. They're changed to adapt for the requirements of multinationals and international players, and that's very important. Any foreign investor wants to go somewhere. He wants to make sure that not only the corporate law is protected, but also the employees, their rights, all the adjustments. For example, in Dubai, if you have somebody working in your house, they give them 6-hour training. What are their rights before they join? So it's very important what they have done. They're really ahead. What they are doing, they're looking at everything that's happening in the world, and they are making it to fit their vision and what they want to attract. So they want to make sure that everybody comes here without a problem, to manage their business easily. And really, technology has helped. Transformation has helped a lot in this.
We talked in depth about local investments. What about foreign investments? according to the latest Fitch report, PIF's investments abroad currently account for 25% of its $700 billion portfolio, with Asia becoming more and more central to the strategy. As an example, Qatar Investment Authority set up an office in Singapore in 2021. Emil, in your view, do you see local private investors willing to rebalance their exposure to foreign-based assets? And apart from Asia, which seems to be more related to infra investments, is there still any appetite for trophy assets?
It's this is an interesting question, actually. Internationally, what we see, and this has been touched upon by Dr. Ali earlier on, is that the next generation is actually very much educated abroad. So they do have a tendency to actually look at potential investments outside of their own country. They actually set up family offices outside of their own country. If I take, I'll give you a few examples. The Sawiris family of Egypt have their family office in London. The Alayan family of Saudi Arabia have also set up recently the family office in London to be closer to the ground. The Miati family from Lebanon have a Geneva-based family office. So those families do look at diversifying in abroad, having some foreign-based assets, as you mentioned, and to be on the ground in order to seek those opportunities and to be closer to the market where they want to diversify. So yes, we do see a lot of investments in outside of the region with local presence, with some of the best educated people surrounding those people, and so this is something that we like to interact with. We actually can add a lot of value to those thinking, bring our expertise on the real estate, for instance. And this is a good transition to trophy assets. You're referring to trophy assets. We see less trophy assets currently. It was a great tendency when interest rates were low or even negative in some countries. So Middle Eastern families were actually looking to park, if I may say so, their wealth into trophy assets. I guess with the radical change in interest rates and the current level of interest rates, especially in dollar terms, trophy assets are less of interest, but it doesn't mean it disappeared completely. This is really something that you will continue to see from Middle Easterns. They will continue, and they will certainly look at New York, London, Paris, as or Singapore. You referred to Singapore for the QIA. They will continue actually to look at those locations to buy trophy assets, but probably in a less extensive manner as it used to be when interest rates were close to zero.
So I have a question for Jiwan, as Emil talked about foreign countries concerning trophy assets and other type of investments. How can we support our family holding clients to diversify in Europe and clearly, particularly in France?
Well, as we are a leading French group, we are capable of facilitating French and European investment opportunities to local families, especially the ones that they would like to diversify their investment portfolios in various sectors and geographies out of the GCC. And we're doing that through our regular interaction with GIB and mid-cap advisory teams within CACIB.
Right, fantastic. That means that we have the full setup in order to make sure that local investors will have access to those assets abroad. We talked about the economy, the local investors, the foreign investors, but we need to talk about the long-term trends shaping the future of the Middle East. A recent UBS survey shows that by 2030, the value of the Middle East digital economy would correspond to 13.4% of its GDP, tripling its size and hitting $780 billion. Dr. Ali, do you see GCC countries as strong contenders in the competition for dominance in the tech sector?
Well, as I was saying before, all the transformation is actually using tech. And if you are using tech, you need to invest in tech as well to get the best out of it. And For example, I sit on a board of a company here where we are actually doing the iCloud locally. So this gives us also a lot of incentives and protections, etc. AI is very important now to identify demographics and to tailor-made your needs. We have a calling center, for example, where I sit on the board of a calling center, and we received a proposal from an AI company saying that you no longer have to fill a client's questionnaire anymore. From the tone of the voice of the phone call, we will be able to assess whether there's frustration, whether there's... So all these things are very important going forward with all the initiatives that the government has done. They cannot do it without investing in high-tech technology. They've already done it already, but they want to continue innovate, and they are creating all sorts of funds for that. For example, Saudi Arabia just created a medical fund, $1 billion a year for 20 years for whoever comes up with the best technology in prolonging life, which is also all done by technology. It's nothing done just in the old traditional ways. So going forward, there are programs that the governments are doing to make the young population who love technology anyway. The young population, they stay on the phone, I don't know, 6 hours a day. They play on things that we never did in our time. So basically, yes, going forward, I agree with this, and I think that it will continue to grow. And private sector will invest in addition to the government. But the private sector will take it because I'm seeing it all over the place now. Companies coming over, starting payment systems, starting all this happening in Saudi Arabia at the moment, and in the Gulf it happened as well, and still happening.
And I'm sure that there will be a lot of private investors interested in the medical fund that you just mentioned. Talking about the green economy, the COP28 announced the launch of a $30 billion USD fund sponsored by the UAE to fight the climate change. Whilst the objectives for corporates are to reach net zero by 2050, as to say 10 years ahead of the country's commitment, the green economy fosters $2 trillion in economic growth and more than 1 million jobs by 2030. Atem, what can we do about it? What is the business potential for us?
Well, actually, what we did 1 year ago is to have a new team with sustainability headed by Saria Qudsi, based in Dubai. And she's a team of Tanguy Claquin and Antoine Rose in Hong Kong. So for us, it's a key element for us. This transition is important. We are aware that all our clients are looking to this topic very carefully. They are really interested to see how they can be in this energy transition. And this is how we are acting, as we did in the past in all of the countries within CACIB. So for us, first of all, we have this reputation on sustainability. We are well recognized as a bank with an expertise which is very important. And we have also all the product lines locally with the GIB, with DCM, with financing. And also we are benefiting the fact that we have a global offer. And when I'm talking about global offer, it's not only about products. It's also about the fact that we are with Andosias Wealth Management, we are with Amundi, we are with Crédit Agricole Egypt, and we have our network in more than 35 countries in the world. So for the clients, they are recognizing us as a major actor on the sustainability, and they are where we can bring value for them. And also the fact that we are working closely with all our clients in other countries with the help of the MNC team headed by Aurélie in Dubai, but all this network headed by Octavio is very important for us to develop this expertise in the countries, in the GCC, and also outside.
Absolutely, and I think that it is a key factor to be recognized as a leader in sustainability and as a real leader in sustainability. But we also need to make sure to foster the dialogue with investors. So Elizabeth, how can we guarantee that investors, local and foreign investors, will have a flow of business opportunities in the green economy?
Well, actually, as they are seasoned investors and as they have an increasing awareness on ESG, the role of PIB is to ensure that those families can have a proper access in any operations covered by the group in this field. And to do so concretely, we will rely on some key initiatives of CACIB, such as, for instance, to the new CIB Energy Transition Community that has been launched recently. And typically, we want families to be full part of this community that tends to make the information to be shared on any ESG project led by the group.
Fantastic. I need to move to what is most important to me, people. As we said, the green economy will contribute massively to the job creation. Can any of my guests comment on the role of women and of the next gen in such an important shift? And I'm just looking at Dr. Ali. Unfortunately, he's not here with us, but I think that you are the best position to start this debate on women and the next gen.
Well, I mean, women is interesting for Saudi Arabia because, as you know, the women driving cars just started only a few years ago, and women in the workforce, started also much before, but it was on a much slower pace. What I can tell you today is that women, they contribute to 35% of the workforce, and the target was actually 27% by 2030. So imagine that they beat the target, and now they're expecting to go up to 40% by 2030. So there's a huge contribution from women. 50% of the companies in Saudi Arabia are actually owned by women. This is a study which I was also impressed to see. And they have stabilized the workforce, because we need workforce in Saudi Arabia. We need locals, and they have really stabilized the workforce, and they've contributed massively. Now, coming to your point about green economy, of course, regulations are set in our countries. Everybody is doing his best to comply with those regulations. To follow. This is on the corporate side. However, on the government side, there is huge investments happening in that field. We have, as you know, very rich sun reserves that are in Saudi Arabia. So the government is maybe making this available also to the private sector to invest in, where you would sell into the grid. You produce your own, and they've done studies, and they already started. There is the wind field. They are also, government is investing, also the private sector is investing in that to help. Also, we have the sustainable cities, and then we have one project in Riyadh, which is the Riyadh Green, which will contribute a lot. It will mean that they will be planting around 7.5 million trees in Riyadh by itself. So there is massive things happening in that field. In addition to, there's a plan to reduce, if I recall, 4 million barrels of diesel that is being used a day to go for green energy, hydrogen, or you name it, whatever becomes available. But at the same time, convert those into petrochemicals, which will create huge values. When you take out a barrel of oil and you make it into petrochemicals, the values are 20, 30, 50, sometimes 200 times more in terms of. So all this is happening at the moment, and there's big excitement from the private sector as well in this field.
You were saying something?
Yeah, may I add something? Actually, we had last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, sorry, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, the visit of Madame Bénédicte Chrétien, the global head of human resources for Crédit Agricole. And the main topics for her when she visited the region is about education and empowerment of the women. And she met with women leaders in the region, especially in Saudi Arabia. We met also with the Human Resources Ministry in Saudi Arabia. It's a Ministry of Human Resources, where we have a team which is a secretary of Minister Secretary, who is in charge of the empowerment of the women. And as Dr. Ali mentioned, the figures in terms of progression of number of women at the top level of the companies is progressing. They have KPIs on that one, and they are reaching these KPIs even before the term that they designed in the past. So again, this shows how this topic is key for the region, for Saudi Arabia, and it is a part of this transition, about this societal transition which is happening in the region, and it's accelerating as well.
Absolutely, but nobody talked about the Next Gen, and as Emile is sponsor of the Next Gen project within Indosuez. Do you have any comment on that, Emile?
Yeah, I mean, women and Next Gen usually go together. We actually have a very, very strong push on Next Gen, and every time actually I go in the region, I'm extremely impressed by the quality of the people we meet, the quality of the education. They have been to the best universities in the UK, in the US, or in Asia for some of them. And it's extremely pleasant to interact with this next generation. As regards women, as Dr. Ali mentioned, half of the companies in Saudi Arabia are owned by women. And we in Indosuez have put a lot of emphasis, and will continue to do so, towards dealing with women, to make sure that we actually offer the right solutions, that we come up with the right financing when there are financing needs, that we use the network that we have to promote the various projects that are empowered by women. So this is, for us, a key development in the region, women and next generation. And also what we like to do is actually put really the entire network that we have at the service of this population. We have a lot to learn from them, but they also are looking for guidance on our side, guidance on how to raise funds, how to make sure that you are impactful when you go and talk to investors when you want to raise money. We believe that we have the network to do so, and this is the approach that we want to build together. And we do this very in close cooperation with our friends from CACIB in the region, and we will continue to have a very strong push on Next Gen and women in Indosuez. And you will see, hopefully we'll talk again next week, next year, and we will give you an update on where we stand on this specific topic.
And I'm very keen to hear about the update on the Next Gen project. As some of you recall, the previous family holding sector call was about Next Gen, which is a super important topic for all of us as we are dealing with families. But just going back to women, it's not by chance that the region within private investment banking is led by two young women, by the way, Elizabeth in Paris and Jiwan in Dubai. I think that the clock is ticking. I can see that it's 9:46. I really would like to leave the floor to any questions. If you have, I can see that there are already 4 written questions. If you want to ask questions, either you can raise your hand or you can write the question directly into the box that you have in your WebEx. So if there's no, and I'm just turning back, if there's no question or live question, I can just read the first question that I can see in front of my screen. How do you see the upcoming development of major financial center in the GCC? I guess that this question would be mostly for you, Emile.
So if the question is, will we open up new booking centers in the GCC? The answer is no. We actually will continue to manage our operations out of 3 hubs. That is Geneva, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. But we continue actually. What we see actually in the UAE, and probably Hatem can add to this. We have a very strong presence, and we see Dubai as a very, very strong financial center. We would like, as Industrials, to have a push towards Abu Dhabi. We believe there is a very strong development to be done in Abu Dhabi, and a lot of wealthy families that are based in Abu Dhabi that we do look after, but not enough. So this is probably another push. And also, going forward, we talked a lot about Saudi Arabia. We may question ourselves: do we want to have a presence locally from Industrials in Saudi Arabia? This is something to be thought about. It's not currently the plan, but going forward, I guess there'll probably be a shift in the region from Dubai to other financial centers.
Maybe, just to confirm what Emile mentioned, the fact that probably in the past, the main and major financial center is the DIFC, which is in Dubai. And we saw more and more interest and more importance for the financial center in Abu Dhabi, where we have more and more banks establishing offices there, and family holdings and so on, and it's attracting more and more the finance industry in the region. The last one is for sure Saudi Arabia, which is very, very important, taking into account all the projects we have in Saudi Arabia. So for us, we have a new license more than 1.5 years ago. We have a CMA license that allows us to have an advisory role in this region, which is very important for us, and it is something that complements what we can do outside Saudi Arabia, which is all about the financing for the region and for Saudi Arabia especially. So again, yes, for sure, Dubai is the first one, the main, at least as of today, but Abu Dhabi is becoming big and more important, and Saudi Arabia is very, very huge in terms of potential for all the finance industry.
Absolutely, and probably we don't talk about financial centers, but I like to remind our presence in Egypt. I think Egypt is a key country for us. I think that Elizabeth, with the team, with the local teams, has been extremely successful, because the first activity that we ever ran out of the region comes from Egypt. So I think that Egypt, and I'm sure that Dr.Ali will confirm it, I can see it from the screen. Egypt is a key country, is an interesting country, and we have 2 board members here, so we need to assess the importance of Egypt.
Capitalize a little bit on Saudi Arabia, and then we move to Egypt. I think Saudi, in Saudi Arabia, we have the largest number of millionaires in the region. We have, I think, around 225,000 millionaires. Expected growth of wealth as a result of what's happening by 2026. I was reading the other day that it's going to be around $300 billion in extra wealth. So there is a big attractive market in Saudi Arabia to bring. I know that Dubai, Abu Dhabi have been always a hub. I think a big competition will happen in this space in Saudi, and more international banks will move to capitalize on the opportunities and on the local wealth that's being created. So this is for Saudi. I like Egypt still, in spite of all the problems that have happened and are happening in Egypt. I think it's a country with a great potential. Big population, lots of wealth, but they need more, reform. And we've met with the officials so many times, and they're trying. It's not that easy for them to do reform, but they are on track to do something. In terms of, setting up an operation in Egypt, similar to anything in the Gulf, it costs much less, and the yields are better, the numbers, but the risk is much higher, and the time is longer. And that's the difficult part in Egypt. Apart from that, I think that there are great opportunities in Egypt, and I see Egypt going over the problems that they have now, and then it will accelerate. I still believe in that.
I keep on reading the questions from the audience, and the first one I see is, do you see opportunities for startup and tech companies to operate from GCC countries, and especially Saudi? I'm sure that as far as Saudi is concerned, Dr. Ali, you will have something to say. You said already something about the potential of the tech industry, hence the potential for startups over there.
Well, what's happening now in Saudi, and I am part of it because I sit on 3-4 boards of companies that are in this field, and I see them. There is a big harmony between the entire Middle East. Companies that are set up in Jordan have come to Saudi, and companies that are in Saudi have gone to Jordan, and so forth, to expand and to enlarge the market share. So, of course, and as I said before, there is, with wealth generation, there is extra money to take risk, and startups are risky. And in order for you to take risk, you have to make some money, and people are making money here, so there is appetite at the moment, for sure.
Just moving on to the following question, and I guess once again, as we're talking about the Vision 2030 plan, that would go back to Dr. Ali, but I invite you to comment if you have any comments. What are the privatization projects announced in the Vision 2030 plan that could attract the interest of family holding investors? So we just get into the concrete projects, Dr. Ali.
Oh, I mean, I listed at the beginning some of the projects. As I said, that they want to localize the car industry. And that means that you have to bring all the supply chain with it. So which means, it's a huge thing. They would like to, the aeronautics, they would like to also do manufacturing in that field. Sustainable food chains, production. I just saw the other day a Brazilian company investing $5 billion in Saudi Arabia in this space. So there are lots of things apart from the government just announcing the cities that they are going to build. But in order for you to build anything, you have to create the infrastructure. And that's what they are doing at the moment, is creating infrastructure to keep all these projects running. Whether it's the sports, I mean, you would say, oh, a sporting project is small. It's huge. I mean, they've got one running court here in Riyadh. It's 120 kilometers. Around the city. Imagine how long this it will take to do and how much money it will be invested in. So in every activity, in every field, there is something happening because, as I said, Saudi Arabia just opened up, and that's where the opportunity is. These things have been opened up already in the UAE for ages. We are just opening up. The only difference is there's a mega size, mega space, and with different sceneries, different heritages that other countries don't have in the GCC or even elsewhere. And that's where the opportunity is to look at industrial, to look at hospitality, services, logistics. Everything is opening up in Saudi Arabia. For example, I'll give you one interesting thing. Talking about Egypt, one of the founders of the Egyptian touristic industry from the Sawiris family, he has developed a huge 30 million square meters in the Red Sea in Egypt. He's come now and he took 7 or 8 million square meters in Jeddah to develop, and the government gave him the land to develop and to sell and to create hotels, ports, etc. So in every space, and for the first time in my lifetime, I see Egyptian companies coming to Saudi. Normally, we've been investing in Egypt. I see a lot of Egyptian companies coming here, and they are very difficult about Egyptians in general. They don't invest easy. They like to invest in Egypt. A lot of their businesses are local. And I've seen them coming to take risk in a place like Saudi Arabia. And as you've seen, the other brother of Samiris, which is the largest family in Egypt, he went to Abu Dhabi and he's setting his headquarters there. So they see opportunities going, and they see, okay, we want to be part of it. And that's what's happening. So there is a lot. You want to be in any field. I think if you close your eyes and touch something, it is happening in Saudi Arabia at the moment.
Maybe worth mentioning the fact that the bank signed it this year with the NCP, which is the National Center of Privatization, MOU, with the presence of the Minister of Finance here in the Mont Rouge. and the CEO of NCP to help them on these topics. And we went with them to several countries. We went with them to Korea, we went with them to Japan, to China, and I think India. So it shows that the fact that the relationship and the investment we are with the NCP is key, and we are bringing value for Saudi Arabia on that topic, where we have expertise, as you know, on all privatization we made in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is not, by chance that Elizabeth has also the responsibility for India. I think there's a question exactly on this topic. I think that the corridors between Asia and the GCC are well established, more and more established. Interesting to hear that Egyptian companies and families are investing in Saudi. So I think that we are just in face of a kind of revolution that involves many different countries that are extremely interested about the potential in the region. I see that we still have 2 minutes. There's one more question. I don't know if you want to take it. Do you see many new SMEs, so small companies, incorporated in Saudi since the 2030 plan has been announced?
Yes. There is a program for SMEs here in Saudi Arabia, launched by the government to support SMEs, and a lot of SMEs have participated in that, and we've seen a very big success. There is actually a program in Saudi Arabia where they list the successful companies, and they interview the CEOs of these companies of what they have done. They borrowed money at a cheap rate, and they managed to succeed. And also, Egypt has done a huge SME program, huge, subsidized with the cheap loans, and it really helped them go. I think that they impose on us to be 20% of the loans to SMEs in Egypt, so which is very big. I don't think in France it exceeds 5-6%. I'm not so sure. You guys don't know than me, but in Egypt they put the 20% on the banks within 5 years, and we have approached the 5th year now. So our bank is trying to manage it, but most likely we will succeed. Yes. So it's very important, and young people love this because some of them are starting. They don't have a way to get capital, and if there's some help from the governments, that will lead the way for them.
Absolutely, that will foster the next gen. It's 10 o'clock. And as you know, I'm extremely strict with timing, so I really would like to thank our guest, Dr. Ali. Thank you very much for your presence. So we would have liked to have you here, but it's going to be next time, or it's going to be us in Saudi next time.
Next time.
Thank you very much, Emil, for your presence. Thank you very much, Atem, for being here with us. And clearly, thank you very much to Elizabeth and Jiwan from the PAB team. You don't see him, but he's always back behind the scene. But I really would like to thank Arnaud Audier, who's the guy within our team, our business manager, who takes care of organizing the family holding sector call. So thanks a lot for this very interesting topic, and looking forward to seeing you very soon.
And thank you, Sylvia, for giving us this opportunity to talk about the Middle East and all the opportunities we have.
We are extremely excited about that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and see you soon.